Welcome to the Random Encounter Show. I'm DeathStalker V. We're kicking off our brand new series of table talks. If you missed the update, basically what we're doing here is I'm going to get on hopefully once a week and just share everything from life and movies and anything I can think of with you. There's absolutely no preparation involved with this. Absolutely no scripts or anything, so you never know what you're going to get. I don't even know what you're going to get. So I apologize to all the people in the future. You know, that if you've got better things to do, such as, I don't know, helping your child with their homework, calling your mother on the phone. Hey, you may want to do those, but if you've got a clear deck, grab you something to drink and let's sit down, because for our first episode, I've got a stack of stuff over here so we can bring in some, maybe something interesting here. And I did pick a topic to talk about, and we'll get toward that when that deals with player skill. Where has it went to in our modern gaming scene? Okay, we'll get there. First off, I don't know. I said we would talk about life. Right? That's important. Well, let's talk about life a little bit. Let's talk about something I'm going through here at the Fortress of Doom. And I'm curious if anybody else goes through this. I doubt it. But, see, DeathStalker V's married. He's got a beautiful wife. She runs a beautiful home. And she came in and she took my game room from me. I gave it to her, okay? I said you needed a room for your stuff. Because I'm spread all the way through the house. Why not? So I was nice. But she took my game room from me. And she come in and she started to decorate the Fortress of Doom. No longer was it okay for me to display the skulls of my enemies. You know? Now we have cutesy things. Little statues and ceramic bits. Flowers and things. I don't know. She's from Israel. It's what in Israel you would call her the Ikeret Bayit, right? It's she's just head of the house when it comes to this kind of stuff. Anyways, for the bathrooms, we have these little, maybe 2-foot tall trash cans, bathroom trash cans. Okay, I had some before. They weren't nice enough. They got thrown away, and she went and found some nice ones or nicer ones. They're trash cans. They're trash cans. Right? Anyways, there's this phenomenon that's happening. That anytime I threw something into one of the bathroom trash cans, for example, a wrapper off of a bar of soap, a razor off of a razor blade, you know, after shaving, whatever, she would see it and then get on to me and go throw it away. And I was like, what in the world? What is going on? So after a while, this going on, she's getting on to me. And finally I asked her. I said, why can't I throw anything away in these trash cans? She says, you can take them to the big can in the kitchen. Don't use these trash cans. I'm like, why? Why can't I use these trash cans? And then she tells me these trash cans are for decoration. Trash cans. I'm like, huh? What? Trash cans for decoration. And I'm sitting there thinking, and I'm looking at this thing. And I'm like, she gets on to me for my redneck decorations, as she calls them. But we have a trash can that you can't throw anything into, and here's the kicker. The liner, or the bag in the trash can, is a Walmart grocery bag. She's decorating a trash can with a Walmart grocery bag, and I can't use it. Do you have any idea what kind of madness this is? I don't know. I'm scared. What kind of madness we got going on around here? I don't know. Do any of you go through this kind of stuff? I go through it. It's okay. It's okay. You know, it's married life. You go through things. Who was it? They said, marriage is a fantastic institution. But who in the hell wants to live in an institution? It's a good thing my wife don't watch these. Anyways, guys, that was a little bit about life here at the Fortress of Doom. If you come visit DeathStalker V, do not use the trash cans in the bathrooms. On your life, don't use them, okay? I warned you. Anyways, actually, we get along fantastic. She's a beautiful woman. Definitely the one for me. We get along so well. We get along so much that one of our favorite activities is something I wanted to talk about here. We love to go thrift store hopping, or thrift store shopping, I should say. I call it hopping because we take it serious. We take the thrift store shopping serious. We have 2 routes. One route goes east, and it goes to another small town about 40 minutes down the road. And there's 3 to 4 thrift stores that we stopped in on this route. And then our other route goes south, and that's when we hit like 10 thrift stores because it goes into Pensacola, Florida. And Pensacola is like the place for thrift store shopping. I don't know what it is about Pensacola. I know the big military, Naval Air Force base is there, so a lot of stuff ends up in the thrift stores and such. And but yeah, the thrift stores, there's literally like a small vicinity, basically a city block, and it has like 5 huge thrift stores on it. And so every few weeks we go do one of our thrift store runs, and I have things I look for, she has things she looks for, but I keep an eye out for almost everything, because if it's nice, if it's working, or if it's broken but can easily be repaired or something, I'll pick stuff up to bring home, clean up, and throw it to eBay and turn that money over into some gaming stuff or video gaming stuff, whatever, you know. So that's just something we do. And over the last few weeks, we've picked up, we got sort of dry, but we did pick up a few interesting things I wanted to talk about. Mostly movies, both DVD and VHS. How exciting, right? How exciting. I don't know. Let's talk for a second. First up, I picked up The Monsters. Of course, they put a hellacious sticker on the front that you can't get off without tearing the case up. I'll probably have to hit it with some Windex or something. Anyways, The Monsters Scary Little Christmas. When did this come out? I don't know. I think it was like 2016 or something. Anyways, The Monsters was one of my favorite TV shows of all time, especially growing up. I loved The Monsters. And to see that they've remade this, I don't remember this coming out or anything. I don't keep up with movies, guys. I'm sorry. Movies and music, I'm stuck in the past. You're about to see, okay? But yeah, they remade it, and it's got all new actors and stuff. I don't know if the camera will actually focus there or not, but you can sort of see the cast. And they've got them made up similar, but Grandpa looks nothing like Al Lewis, you know, Herman. I mean, yeah, it doesn't, but maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be good. I don't know. You guys watch this one? I don't know. I have a feeling it's trash. I have a feeling it's trash. Up next on the DVDs, we have Dragonstorm. Okay, a fantasy movie that I don't believe I have seen. It has John Rhys Davies in it, who I'm pretty sure is the actor who played Gimli on the Lord of the Rings movies from Peter Jackson. So yeah, we'll check it out. Again, since I haven't heard of this, it's probably going to be trash, but I love B movies and trash movies. I don't know why. I'm watching them all the time. Yeah, it's been a dry thrift store run though. And the thing about some of the thrift stores we go to, because they're ran by, I guess you would call them missions or churches or something, they heavily sanitize what comes through those for sale. So, like music, forget it. It's nothing but gospel music. Forget it, you know, forget it. I just can't. So music, don't even bother. Sometimes they get some electronics, but they try to censor the movies, but they're terrible at it. And these thrift stores, I really don't go to as much anymore because they've started this insane policy where I used to go there and I would find stuff like NES games. You know, I'm talking like 2 years ago. They'd be 99 cents each. All of a sudden now, everything has a compared to eBay price label on it. So you walk in and you see things literally for like $100 or more. And like, for example, I went in and they had an NES console, maybe last year or so. Bare bones console. It may have had one controller with it. It did not even have the power cord or anything. They had a price tag of $129.99. I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not even going to get this on eBay. They've lost their minds, so it's a thing. But they censor their stuff. But one thing about it is they pretty much let all the movies come through. And their movies, we picked up these two from there. DVDs are 99 cents or less, and VHS tapes are $0.25. And I still have a VCR and stuff. You know, I'll still use VHS sometimes. So we picked up, for whatever reason, we picked up some VHS tapes. And one of them I picked up is I have absolutely no idea about, but I know that it probably shouldn't have got past their censors. But Vampire Hunter D. I've actually heard of this. I know it's an anime. I'm not into anime. You know, I've never been into anime. I don't get it. I don't have anything against it. It's just that it doesn't do anything for me so much. But, you know, on the back it's warning contains extreme violence and nudity. I don't know. I might have to watch this one. 1985 VHS. If I don't end up watching it, probably throw it to eBay, because I figure even in sort of the rough shape the cover's in, we can get $10 for it. It cost $0.25. Okay, if even that. Because this place, if you spend any money there, they send you a $5 coupon on your cell phone if you register your number with them. Okay? So most of the time, I go in and get stuff for free. The next movie is something special, guys. This is one of my favorite movies from childhood, and even as an adult, I have to stop and watch this movie any chance I get. Uncle Buck, John Candy, come on. To me, this is John Candy's best movie. John Candy killed it in this movie as Uncle Buck. Now, I love John Candy. I don't think the guy made a bad movie, at least to me. You know, from Nothing But Trouble. That was a fantastic one. Or even the, what was it, Cool Runnings, where he was the head of the coach of the Jamaican sled team or something. I don't know. All the movies are fantastic. Summer Rental, The Great Outdoors. Come on. You know, the guy just made killer movies in the 80s, and I absolutely love it. But Uncle Buck stands out. It's one that, growing up, this was one of my Aunt Lisa's favorite movies. Some of you may know, but I used to pretty much spend every weekend at her house playing Atari and watching movies and eating pizzas, Chinese food, and hot wings with her. You know, so yeah, this was one that we definitely, if it was coming on TV or something, we definitely watched. So, Uncle Buck. Fantastic. Who still watches VHS nowadays? I know. But I can't pass them up for $0.25. Come on, I can rewind. Talking about rewinding, I see somebody didn't rewind. Remember all the rental places that had the warnings on there about you better rewind the movie or they're going to charge you extra? I used to follow those directions. They scared me with that when I was a kid. What else did we get? This one. Another VHS in a clamshell. Okay. The animated Lord of the Rings. Now this is another special movie to me because it was the only Lord of the Rings movies we had up until the Peter Jackson movies of the early 2000s. But until then, this was the Lord of the Rings movie that we had. There was also The Hobbit and what was the last one called? The Two Towers, The Return of the King, whatever. I don't know. There was 3 movies. Ralph Bakshi, how do you pronounce his name? Bakshi. Ralph Bakshi, yeah. He did this movie. He also did Fire and Ice with Frank Franzetta. Okay, I told you I'm not into anime so much, but these are more Western cartoon styles with different stuff going on. But yeah, fantastic. This was how we knew Lord of the Rings other than reading the books. So yeah, fantastic little find. And here's a little thing that a lot of people may not realize, that I actually did a little research on this VHS because I didn't know it came out. I think this came out in 2003, 2001. So it was a re-release. And people online are talking about this. They said this is the best version of this movie you can currently buy. And I have the DVDs and such. But they were talking about things, and I went back and checked, and what they said was absolutely true. That when they took the movies over to DVD, the audio was not synced up correctly. And there was a few other minor things that just didn't work out well. And this remastered, well, I don't know if it's technically remastered, but this re-release of Lord of the Rings is still to this day claimed by many people to be the ultimate version until we get something better out on DVD or Blu-ray. Okay, I have to take their words for it because, like I said, I did check my DVD. I was just curious. So a few days ago, I popped it in and I was watching, and sure enough, I paid close attention. It's not really noticeable, but if you pay attention to it, the audio sync is off on that. So matched up with like the mouths moving and such. So just interesting tidbit. You never know what you're going to learn around here. Yeah? Our last movie. I have no idea why we picked this up. Okay? It said limited edition. I don't know. It's in pretty rough shape. But if anything, it's worth the story I can tell about this. We got the re-release limited edition of E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Yeah? Iconic movie. Steven Spielberg's iconic movie. And what's the funny story? I don't know. It's a little bit embarrassing. E.T. terrified me to no end when I was a kid. I have to be the only person who was terrified by E.T. the Extraterrestrial when I was a kid. And I'll tell you how it happened. That E.T. was the first movie I ever went to see in a theater. My mother and my grandmother took me to see this movie, and they thought it was going to be this just magical experience for me. And they had the right kind of thinking, but for whatever reason, things went terribly wrong in the theater for me. First off, like I said, it was my first time in the theater. The massive screen, it's dark inside, the robust sound and everything. It was my first experience of something like this. And I remember at first I was good. But when E.T. started and he was running around in the woods and all these people with flashlights were looking for him in the woods. I guess his UFO had came down. He was collecting plants or whatever. I was already on high alert. These woods, that E.T. was not any animal I had ever seen. I grew up on the farm. And when E.T. started running through those bushes and stuff, something in my mind, I knew that was a predator. I knew E.T. was a predator at that point. So I'm watching this and I'm not sure what's going on. I'm not sure what they've brought me to. I'm pretty sure I don't want to be here. Anyways, the movie goes on a little bit, and the next time we see E.T. is when Elliot opens the shed door and E.T.'s in there and he screams and Elliot screams. When they both went to screaming, I was screaming and I took off down the aisle of the theater, ran all the way out of the theater and refused to go back in. Off of E.T. I'm sorry. I know, right? But it gets even worse. This story gets even worse. For months after that, I was absolutely terrified that E.T. was outside my bedroom window. Because at the time, we lived off sort of in the country. My mother had married my stepfather. And this is all in this time frame right here. And we were building a house in the country, and we were renting a place down the road from where we were building a house. Anyways, I had a small bedroom, and my bed was up against a window that I looked out of when I laid there at night. And I was young. I have a good memory, though. I can remember all the way back till I was crawling and in the crib. But I was young. I don't know what age. 3? Maybe 3. Maybe 4. Maybe 4. Probably 3, though. Anyways, I would look out this bedroom window, and I would see E.T. the extraterrestrial outstanding in the yard. I swear on everything that I love, I could see it. And I was telling people, I was screaming, I was terrified. A car would come down the country road, and I would literally see E.T. standing there, like 4 foot tall, 5 foot tall, his wide head, and every once in a while I could see his finger glow, the red glow. It drove me up the wall. Nobody would believe me. I was terrified. I knew what I was seeing. Anyways, I think after quite a few nights of this, I think my stepfather finally decided he better go see what I'm seeing in the yard, that it's not just a figment of my imagination. So, what it turned out to be, there actually was something there. It was the neighbor's mailbox. That was what I was seeing. It was about 4 foot, 5 foot tall. The mailbox was the head, and it had a red reflector on the pole. So anytime a car went by, I would see that silhouette, and that red reflector would light up. How embarrassing is it to be the only person ever terrified of E.T.? Later on, I came to love E.T., yeah? Later on. It's so funny, though, how E.T. scared me, and then later on, the stuff that didn't even faze me. Especially with Aunt Lisa, alien movies, stuff like that. Come on. Anyways, guys, let's get back to it. One last thing from the gaming store. I actually got this for free. It was marked down to $179, but we had the $5 credit, so we got a lot of this stuff free, but this for sure was for free. It's a bag. I don't necessarily want to open it, but it's a bag of aquarium plants. I guess we can take a look at some of the stuff, huh? And they're not in great shape, but that really doesn't matter so much, you know. But here's some examples. You know, there is sort of foliage, plants, and leaves, and stems. There's all kind of stuff in here. Yeah? Now, why in the world would I want to buy a bag of aquarium plants? Well, number one, the price was free. I like all kind of free stuff. I think these are used even. Oh my God. What did I bring home? Oh man. Yeah, those are definitely used. I'm smelling them now. We'll get those cleaned up. But why would I want a bag full of aquarium plants? Plastic aquarium plants. Come on, guys. I'm a hobby gamer. This stuff I can use. If I gotta chop it up, if I just need pieces of it, if I want to use it whole, whatever. This turns into tabletop terrain very easily and looks fantastic. I don't have to really model anything. I don't really have to paint anything. All I need to do is chop it down to the right sizes and maybe glue it on some basing. Yeah? So always be on the lookout for this kind of stuff with your thrift stores. You might want to find some that hasn't been used, but hey, it cleans up underwater. It goes in aquariums. What's it going to hurt it? So yeah, stuff for wargaming. Stuff for tabletop role-playing games, whatever. A nice bag of terrain. I don't know. Guys, I'm sorry I had to talk about being terrified of E.T. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Life is so strange. It's being a kid so much fun. But do you remember how stuff really would terrify you as a child? That was I don't know. It's you can't get there as an adult. You can't do it. I've never been there as an adult. E.T. got me. E.T. got me. The only other movie that got me was Child's Play. And it really shouldn't have got me, but there was all these extraordinary circumstances. How long are we going to make this video and not even talk about gaming stuff? Well, we talked about the terrain stuff. let's talk. Hey, we're here to talk about life sometimes and share stories. When I was in elementary school, in my first elementary school, this was kindergarten through 4th grade. We've talked about it before. I had a group of friends. We played D&D together and stuff. And there was 2 Kyles. I don't know if I talked about the 2 Kyles on this channel. There was Vampire Kyle. I think we talked about that. He's passed away. And then there was the other Kyle. I know we haven't talked about this, but he was the Kyle that I went to his birthday party that was hosted by the Hells Angels. And I watched my stepdad and mom, they just melted to the floor. That's for another time. I talked about that on the old DeathStalker V Legendary Battle Axe channel. It's gone, but some of you that were around then and are still watching, you may remember that story. I'll retell it here because it's worth retelling, but not on this episode. We need to move along. Anyways, with our group of friends, we played baseball together, we played D&D together, we did sleepovers together, we were tight-knit. And one thing we would do is that we would meet up in school and talk about scary movies. Now, to walk back a little bit, for a long time I never had a TV in my bedroom. And I can't remember if it was my step-grandparents or somebody on our road. Somebody was getting rid of an old black and white portable TV set with the switches on the side. And I said switches, not dials. This was the ones you had the few switches that you had to literally dial into a channel. Yeah? Rabbit ears with aluminum foil wrapped around them. Deal. Some of you may be old enough to remember that. But that was my first TV in my room. Somebody was throwing it away. I grabbed it, took it home, hooked it up, got it all set up. And what I would do was back then, I mean, I say back then, but it was 30 plus years ago. TV would come on, stations out of Atlanta, Georgia. And most of them around 11, 12, 1 or 2 o'clock, they went off the air, and you saw the bars come down and they played the national anthem or the Star Spangled Banner. Or is that both the same? Come on. Anyways. Anyways, on Friday and Saturday nights, we had these channels. TBS, there was channel, I think it was 66. It turned into UPN, but I can't remember the name of it before. But these two would stay on like all Friday night into Saturday, all Saturday night until Sunday. And they would play, UPN would play like classic monster movies, classic science fiction movies, and B movies, and B horror movies and stuff. It was fantastic. All night long, all day, all night long. And the other one was TBS. And on Friday nights, they had, what was it called? TBS Chiller? Or something like that. They would play like big name horror movies all Friday night. And Saturday night, I can't remember what TBS did. I think that was baseball night or something. I can't remember. Anyways, I would stay up on Friday nights and Saturday nights in my bedroom watching TV way past my bedtime. I would take a blanket and throw it over the back of the TV and stretch it out over me and sit on the edge of my bed and watch TV. That way no light and sound would escape under the door. Nobody would know I was still awake. And I would sit in there and I would watch all these movies. I would just fill my head with craziness. Anyways, like I said, the group at school and Kyle, the Hells Angels birthday party Kyle, we would pick up TV guides. Somebody in the group would pick one up. We'd go to the store with our mom, the grocery store or something. TV guides were free at that time almost everywhere. You guys remember TV guides? This was long before Amazon Prime. And we would check out, bring it to school and check out what movies were coming on for the weekend. And we'd be like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Anyway, somehow it turned out to be this group meeting thing about we're going to select the most terrible movie possible coming on most likely TBS. TBS used to put some terrible stuff on. They really pushed the envelope back then. But let's pick the worst movie we possibly can. And we're going to come back to school Monday and see who actually watched it. If you didn't watch it, if you couldn't talk detailed information about this movie, we knew you were a chicken, right? So nobody wanted to be a chicken. And for the most part, all of us would try to take it easy on each other. To be honest, we would. But Kyle would come along, and we knew we were doomed. We hated to see Kyle coming when this movie thing was going on, because Kyle had older brothers, and his house absolutely had no rules whatsoever. When we get to the birthday party story, you'll understand one day, okay? But he had older brothers, and he had literally watched everything imaginable. I'm talking about like in first grade or second grade, he's telling us about pornos. We didn't know about those things. Oh my God. What? One day, I don't know, we like to stay on YouTube. I try to make this at least PG-13 related show, but one day we'll try to tell the story about how he described what relations were between two people. Something about pouring baby oil on legs and things. I don't know. Anyways, Kyle would come along, and his older brothers and stuff, he had already seen all this stuff. He was jaded on it. And he would pick out the worst possible movie you could have possibly imagined to watch, for us to watch, right? Oh my God. That's how I ended up watching Piranhas. That movie still freaks me out to this day. The original Piranhas, guys, I think about that every time I go swimming. Anyways, Child Play. He picked Child's Play one time. We're talking, you know, Chucky the doll. The killer spirit entering a doll and is coming back. A doll with a butcher knife trying to kill a mom and its kid. Oh my God. Anyways, this movie was freaky enough for me. We're talking, I was probably in first grade. I shouldn't have been watching this movie, but I wasn't going to be a chicken. And that's why I watched it. I wanted to turn it off. I'm honest with you. I wanted to turn it off. But the doll came back. I'm looking around my room at these various toys and things I got. And I'm like, I'm glad I don't have any dolls. But the Chucky comes back and anything. Anyways, I make it through the end of the movie. And it spooked me. It spooked me. I'm laying in my bed and I'm clutching the blankets up to my face like this. And I'm like on high alert mode. You know, like a prey animal, listening for predators. Any sounds or anything. I'm ready to spring out of the bed, scream and run at the top of my lungs. Yeah. Anyways, I'm laying there, and outside of my bedroom, this was in our new house we had built. Outside of my bedroom, it was on the opposite end of the house than my parents' bedroom, but off in the distance there was a street light. Yeah? So I could see light coming in through the window of my room, and that was pretty nice when I was a kid. But on this particular night, I'm laying there, and I thought I heard something. So it's like all the hairs on the back, probably the hairs I didn't even have at the time. But if I would have had hairs on my back and neck and stuff, they would have been standing straight up. Yeah? I don't know, I probably did have hairs. I had a full beard in the 6th grade. No joke. No joke. I went to high school, people thought I was a teacher. Substitute. Hey, anyways. I'm laying there and it's like I'm in adrenaline mode. I can hear my heart thumping. And like I said, I thought I heard something, so I'm listening. You know, when you're a kid, you can listen so hard that it hurts almost. You remember that? My blood pressure's up. Anyways, all hell breaks loose outside. It was unbelievable. There was a sudden bright flash of light that like blanketed the whole house and the yard. Just boom. And there was a massive explosion. It sounded like a cannon going off. Boom! I saw sparks. I saw sparks coming down, and then it was total darkness. Total darkness. And I'm on such an alert mode that this darkness was so complete, I even realized that the refrigerator and stuff, that all the sounds are missing in the house. And it terrified me so bad that I jumped. I literally just whipped myself out of bed. I grabbed the light switch and I turned it on, but it did not work. and I couldn't make my hand operate the doorknob on my bedroom door. And this was the only time in my life I've been this terrified. I went to scream and nothing would come out of my throat. It was like, and I was literally I could not scream, and I had just frozen in place with my hand on the doorknob. And I don't know how long I was there. But all of a sudden, my door opened and one of my parents was there with a flashlight. And at that point, I got my voice back and I screamed like I was being murdered. Oh my God, what a night. Child's play. Why did I ever listen to Kyle? I don't know. I don't know, guys. Just funny stories. I don't know. Can we get over to talking about some tabletop gaming? Yes, we can. After I get a sip of cherry Coke, why not? I'm hooked on this stuff now. I'm hooked on this stuff. My wife brought it into the house. Oh my God. Anyways, the topic I want to talk about is something that I've been noticing here lately. Well, not lately, but it came to my attention and I started noticing it more and more. I've been noticing it before, but I really didn't think about it too much. When we did the table talk on Castles and Crusades and how it picks up where Dungeons and Dragons left off when 3rd edition came around, 4th and 5th, modern D&D, we talked about that Castles and Crusades retain the atmosphere and the feel of old school Dungeons and Dragons, specifically Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. This is my original copy, by the way. The Dungeon Master Guide was the first book I got. The Player's Handbook and Monster Manual came later on, and then I filled out the library as I went. Anyways. I got to thinking, I said, really, what was that atmosphere and that feel that I'm talking about? And I've really thought on that. And I've came to the conclusion that what I'm talking about is truly the amount of player skill that was involved in playing old school D&D, whether it was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition or earlier iterations of the game. It was just, there was a lot of player skill involved. And the atmosphere is what created that player skill. I see modern games being played online and stuff, and I look at some solo content here and there. I really don't look at a lot, guys. I have things to do. I barely have time to come on and make my own content. But one thing that I noticed for a while now, and it's getting more and more prevalent, is that most all games and gamers just strictly rely on game mechanics to push the game forward. You know, and that's a modern thing. You know, like the Siege engine in the Castles and Crusades, you know, that has mechanics that do everything. The feel of old school Dungeons and Dragons actually comes because it lacked mechanics to handle anything in game. It had rules, and it was basically saying that if you get involved in something in your game that's not covered in these books, it's up to the game master to make a judgment call on. So there was rules for it, but there was no mechanics like the Siege engine or attribute checks and such. And really, there was mechanics because in my experience of playing older editions of D&D pretty much all of my life, there's been two ways that people go about it, or groups go about it. The first way is they house rule some mechanics. The groups I played in, the house rule you most normally saw. So write this down if you're into old school D&D and you would like some mechanics and you don't know about this. Or maybe you're thinking about getting into old school D&D or something like Swords and Wizardry where it could use some sort of universal attribute mechanics. What we used to do was a D20 roll equal to or under whatever attribute score we were going to check. So strength, dexterity, constitution, charisma, intelligence, wisdom. You had to pick the attribute that most closely was going to be used in whatever you were trying to do. Say you were trying to move something heavy, you would use strength, okay? Maybe you were trying to jump over something or swing on a chandelier or something, dexterity. Maybe you were trying to decipher something in an old book, intelligence, okay? That kind of thing. Now, at its bare bones, we did an unmodified roll. Let's say you had a strength of 13 and you were going to push a heavy statue or something, but it wasn't that heavy. So we would say that's a medium roll for us, which would be on the baseline, no modifiers. So you didn't add or subtract anything. So if you had a strength of 13, if you rolled a d20, you wanted to roll a 13 or less and you were successful. Anything over the 13, you failed. So therefore, the higher attribute score you had, the better chance you had at accomplishing things on the d20. If it was hard or extremely hard, you might add a +3, +5 modifier to your roll. Not your attribute, but to your roll. So if I rolled a 13 and I had to add 5 to it, it now made it an 18. I only have 13 strength. I rolled over, so I failed. And the reverse is true about stuff that should be very routine or very easy. You might do a -3 or a -4 or something on your roll. So say something I was going to do should be fairly easy, but we still needed to know if it's a success or failure. We roll the die and say I got a 14 and I only have a strength of 13. Well, with a -3 to the roll, the 14 now becomes an 11, so I'm successful. You see what I'm saying? So that was very easy to use, and that's what the Siege engine, though it's got a little more beef to it, that's what the Siege engine really reminds me of what how we used to house rule that. And that was fun, you know. But thinking about it, some of the best role-playing games I've ever been involved with, they didn't house rule those mechanics in for old school D&D. What they did was use the rules as written, but interpret them for use at the table. So really where this comes into play, where there might be questions like, what the heck am I talking about? Old school D&D was very much a combat-centric game. All editions of D&D are combat-centric, but old school more so. You know, it took a while before the conventions that there was an outside world from the dungeon and storylines and all this stuff to take place. It was very much combat-centric. So you had lots of rules for combat. You had very little to use outside of combat. Characters had abilities. So your thief could pick locks, could climb and do things. Your fighter really didn't get any utility abilities to it, and so forth. So you would come across things in game outside of combat, and there were no rules for accomplishing it. Like if you didn't have a thief in the party, but your characters needed to get through a door, how are we going to do that? They needed to climb a wall, how are we going to do that? Now AD&D, or Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition, supplements came out like these two. And I highly recommend these books for any roleplay gamers. The Dungeoneer Survival Guide and the Wilderness Survival Guide. You'll learn a little bit about player skills in this, but I absolutely love these two books. They came out with ways, proficiencies. Various proficiencies that characters could learn. And they came out with different situational checks that you could make for characters, such as non-thieves climbing and such. But for the most part, they were very specific rules. They weren't broad. They weren't a universal mechanic yet. You know, D&D hadn't evolved to that point. So still, there was a lot of things that had no mechanics and stuff. So we get back to talking about rules as written, and being interpreted at the table, because that was important. Player skill came in 100% at this point. If you didn't have the ability, it did not mean you could not do what you wanted to do. You had to start problem solving. You had to be creative with it. Just because that locked door, for example, is there. We don't have a thief in the party. We have a fighter, a cleric, and a magic user. How are we going to open that door? Yeah, normally we'd have the thief go in there, check for traps, poke around, try to pick the lock, something. But we don't have that. Well, I guess one of the obvious things is you could attack the door. One of the characters or all the characters or somebody could attack the door and try to damage it. And that's a viable way, but that's not normally the way you would want to approach that. Especially if it wasn't a wooden door or a door that would be easy to break down. What if it was a stone door? Yeah? You have to get creative. You have to think about all of those tools that are available in shops at towns. You know, you go to your player's guide and your dungeon master guide. There's a reason why there's ropes and saws and hammers and winches and pinions and crowbars and 10-foot poles and all of this stuff. Yeah? You use these things to overcome and you problem solve with these tools, just like in real life. You know, and I think it led to better role playing. You had to really get in the eyes of your character and ask questions and come up with a solution. So let's go back to this door. You know, some of the non-obvious things you might ask is, do we see the hinges on the door? You know, just like in real life, if you come upon a locked door and you can see the hinges, well, just a short work with a screwdriver and a hammer or something to knock the pins of the hinges out, it's no longer a locked door. Just quick and easy. Can the lock mechanism, can we pour acid into it? You know, can we get a flask of acid? Can the wizard, you know, or not the wizard, the magic user, or whatever you want to call it, do they have any spells we can use to affect the door, such as turning stone into mud, transmuting stone into mud, transmuting spells, acid bolts, etc.? Can we dig under the door? That was a good one. You know that most dungeons normally have dirt floors, or if they have stone floors, you can pry the stones up with a pick or a crowbar or something, and this dirt underneath. Is it possible to dig under the door? Even better, look at the wall beside the door. Yeah? If you can see where the bolts of the door go in and are locked, you can damage the frame of the door, or you can dig into the wall there and just open the door because there won't be wall to block it. You see what I'm saying? There's just all kind of ways. You know, what door is going to stand up that if you get a team of mules and a winch and some rope and some pinions and things, and you hook this team of mules up, you can pull the door, the frame, everything straight out of the wall. It just takes some creativity on the player's end. And that's what made it such a magical experience for old school D&D for me. Because that same problem solving and creativity is applied to the whole game. From combat situations to negotiations with NPCs in towns and such, to creating events and stuff to get in your favor. If you're constantly problem solving and being creative about things, you can negate another factor of old school D&D, which was the lethality of the game. Okay? The lack of universal mechanics and the lethality of the game, I think both equally created veteran players that had high problem solving creativity, aka player skill, on the table. You know, where when's the last time you played in a modern D&D group, or really role-playing game group with a modern game, that the group marched out, everybody had 2 or 3 10-foot poles on their shoulder? That used to be a common thing. You rarely see it now. Last time I played in a more modern game, it was Castles and Crusades with a group. They looked quite crazy at me because I didn't spend all my money on like the best weapon and the best armor and all these things. I spent money on having some common use tools, and I had made sure I had a 10-foot pole and different things, because I go at it with that mentality even to this day. It's better role playing. Yeah? And why? What's with the 10-foot poles? Let's just go there. Traps were lethal in old school D&D. They were lethal. And other than the thief, no one had detect traps ability. So if your thief died or you didn't have a thief in the party, good luck. Good luck. But one of the things to cut down on the lethality and to use player skill and problem solving was the 10-foot pole. That the characters slowly advanced through dungeons and things, and they would hold the end of the pole and you would swing it up and down as far as you could, then to the left and right as far as you could, and then press down in front of you and walk up to your pole and do this over and over again as your group led into it. The idea was that you would hit any traps, you know, tripwires, you would press down pit traps, spear traps, dart traps shooting from the wall. That was the use of the pole. And it normally didn't take long until your 10-foot pole turned into about a 4-foot pole. And that was the time to just throw it down the hall and see if you could set any more traps off and pull out another pole and keep going. But yeah, it was that way of thinking. You know, it was a slower way of playing. It was definitely a more cerebral way of playing in a lot of ways. But it definitely led to better role playing, and it definitely led to some amazing experiences. You know, it's one thing to run in and kill the ogre, you know, with a group, just throwing dice and having fun. Okay, that's fun and everything. But how much more memorable is seeing that ogre and realizing that, hey, you know, we could totally get wiped by this character or this NPC or monster or whatever you want to call it. So let's spy on this ogre. Let's learn its routine. Let's look at what it does. Let's figure out a way we can kill it safely. You know, maybe we see that it hangs out each night by this rock face over here. So maybe we push off a boulder onto it. It's dead just as much as if you use swords on it or magic. That kind of stuff's much more memorable. I can remember a lot more instances where we use creative thinking and problem solving and player skill than just running in and using game mechanics. You know, like I said, everything's so mechanical now. It's like robots playing. I don't know. There's no flavor to it. There's no player skill to it. Where's it gone? I miss it. I can remember in my Advanced Dungeons and Dragons group at the Baptist Church, David would run it. He was a fantastic game master. He ran Greyhawk, but he had really made Greyhawk his own thing. But I remember we had began a set of new adventures with a low level characters. Maybe they were level 1, maybe they were level 2, 3 at this point. I can't remember. Anyways, we came upon a small town, and it was a fortified town, sort of like Keep on the Borderland, one of my favorite D&D adventure modules. Probably my favorite, actually. But some similar situation. It was a fortified town, and it was off in the wilderness. And there was a cave south of this fortress, and the goblins and orcs had taken up here, and they were using it as a supply base and to run raids on the villages and stuff that surrounded this wilderness. And the leader of this fortress or whatever, the Lord, he wanted help in taking out those goblins. And so I remember we went down to this cave just scouting it out. You know, we used to scout things out. You send out the ranger, the thief, whoever, and you would do some scouting before the whole group decided to go in. They'd come back and make a report. You could buy what you needed, etc., then go in. But scouting it, and it had a massive number of orcs and goblins. And there's basically no way that our party of 6 or so, maybe we had 8, I don't know. We normally had larger parties with this group. But there's no way we're going into that cave and coming out alive. Just absolutely no way. Anyways, I'm going to fast forward through this story a little bit. In the end, we had convinced the Lord that the caves were full of treasure. Even though we didn't know that, we convinced him that the caves were just full of treasure and gold. In fact, I remember our group gave him some gold and silver and stuff we had on us, and said, this is some of the stuff we found just near the entrance of the cave. So he took 15 men, 20 men, something around there. This was 20 years ago. No, more than 20 years ago, guys. So forgive me if I don't know exactly the numbers. But he had a large group of bowmen, crossbowmen, and spearmen. 15 or 20. That went with the group. And the Lord actually went with our group as well. And he left the fortification, you know, in charge with the steward there, and they left enough men to man that. But we went out here, and he brought his pavilions and all this stuff, and he supplied us with everything. So we agreed to do an 80-20 split with him, that he gets 80% of what we find and we get 20. So he's more than happy. He supplies us. We get weapons, armor, anything we need, and all this kind of stuff. So we set up. And we came up with this plan that we would set up in front of the caves, and we would keep watch in front of the caves, and we would sniper off anything that came out of the caves. The goblins, orcs, nothing ever came out of these caves. We sent scouts around the area of the caves, and we couldn't find any entrances, and we couldn't find any signs like trails or footprints or discarded food or anything of these orcs and stuff. So we knew they were in there. We knew they were in there. And so what we ended up doing is we convinced the Lord that we started cutting down pine trees in the forest nearby. And we stacked the whole entrance of the cave as high as we could with pine trees. And we lit it on fire. And I can't remember, maybe it was the magic user, did gust of wind. It seems to me we had some kind of blankets thing or something. I don't know what we came up with. Anyway, we lit the pine trees on fire because they created a lot of smoke when they burn. And they burn green, especially when they have a lot of resin in them. Survival tip if you ever get caught out in the wild. Anyways, we set fire, and this smoke was coming out and going into the cave, fire and all this. And we set up all the crossbowmen and all the characters and stuff who weren't using the blanket or doing whatever. We were doing some way to get the smoke into the cave, because naturally the air would push out of a cave unless it had an opening somewhere else. And that's how one way we knew for sure it didn't, because we had to figure out a way to get the smoke in, because it was blowing outwards instead of inwards. But we figured out a way. And sure enough, as those fires burned down and all this, orcs and goblins and creatures of all types. If you played old school D&D, it didn't have any rhyme or reason of why all these different monsters were hanging out in a dungeon somewhere all together. Anyways, they all come running out through the fire. Some are on fire. We're shooting them down. We're having a blast, you know. And finally, after several hours, nothing comes out of this cave. So we slowly poke through the cave. But it's obvious that everything left in a hurry, but we were still scared of traps. So we slowly poked through, and I remember we got toward the back of the cave, and there was bodies laying everywhere. Some of them didn't have any wounds on them. Some of them were decapitated and had arrows stuck in them and stuff. And then we came up, and there was like some survivors in these caves. We had to wait a while because the caves were full of smoke. And they were still full of smoke at the back, so we had limited visibility and limited breathing. We had to, what did we do? I know we wrapped, some of our characters wrapped wet handkerchiefs around their mouths and stuff. Player skill. Anyway, there was the last survivors in there, and they were literally suffocating and choking out. They were scared to come out of the cave, and they had got into a battle with another group of creatures that were running toward the back of the cave instead of out of the cave. And so those were the survivors. We chopped them down. And I remember there was no treasure whatsoever in the cave. So we had to come up with something and take off, you know. But yeah, it's just thinking ahead, you know. There's a whole cave full of creatures that would probably have slaughtered us if we'd went in. You know, but we didn't play to that. We made them play to us. We set the fire. We got the cave full of smoke. We shot them as they came running out. We convinced a local lord to help us out. And there's several such memories as that, you know, but the lack of abilities for characters and making up with that with creativity and problem solving and the lethality of old school D&D, it makes up player skill. And yeah, I hate to see that it's really left. You know, D&D quit being a lethal game in 3rd edition. Really. Now, it wasn't a cakewalk game. Not like 5th edition, but it definitely lost the lethality of old school D&D. And the atmosphere of it, you know, that there wasn't mechanics for everything and stuff, that was going away with 3rd edition as well. And I think that was the biggest change in what I was thinking of when I talked about the atmosphere and the feeling of old school D&D. I still very much enjoy using the problem solving and creativity in my role-playing games. For you solo gamers, a lot of people I see play like robots. You know, it's just, let's use mechanics for everything. To the point where I even see them using mechanics to see what their characters do. And I'm just like, what? Why? Put the role-playing back into your solo games. Using problem solving and creativity to overcome obstacles in your way instead of just rolling dice and hoping the mechanics play to your end really puts you in the driver's seat and really helps you role play as a solo gamer. I recommend doing it for a group game as well. Like I said, I know you're the oddball if you start playing these styles with a modern group. But truly, if people see this style of play, it catches on. It really does. The group I talked about, a Castles and Crusades group, they saw the way I was playing, and it didn't take too long before they started pulling some of the same tricks. It was, let's not use the siege engine for a deception check. No, let's really think out this deception. Let's really plan this out and pull it off. You know, that kind of stuff. It puts you into role-playing so much better. So much better, and it creates great memories. Anyways, guys, how long have we been on here for? I don't even know. Over an hour. Okay, guys. Look, I'm DeathStalker V. This has been Table Talk on the Random Encounter Show. I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, this is DeathStalker V. I wanted to thank you for watching the Random Encounter Show. If you love tabletop gaming, solo RPGing, or classic video games, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. If you want more of the show, head over to our channel's About page. There you will find our Facebook and Facebook group pages where you can join in on the fun. Want to help support the show? Make sure to use our affiliate and sponsor links next time you're shopping for your favorite gaming products. Anyways, I'll see you guys next time when we roll for Random Encounter.